How are you doing? Remind myself, you know, the well, my wife is a niece of Nancy.
We're all settled now.
I've had it's been interesting. I had back surgery and the hip replacements. She's probably right. What can I say? And of course, I put on like 20 pounds of so that. So it's not a good scenario. But anyway. I want to be the $6 million man. I want to revamping where it is. Yeah, that's nice. So you live in this area? So you knew Gord and Nancy. But this was when they lived in Ferguson, so they lived sort of again. They moved around quite a bit. Thank you. Thank you for the warning. Life seems already a nice thing to have if you just can't make it. I see you're a big boss now. And I'm sure that they're I have a feeling you are on this. Sure you're not. Are you the chaplain here? Or just, no. Just this lead after the second? Yeah, this is for.
I'd like to welcome everybody today. And whenever there's a family gathering, it's an auspicious time, it's a joyful time. But we're here to honor Gord and celebrate his life. I will speak for a short time, and then the son and the daughters of Gord and Nancy will speak, as well as Crystal. I just want to say, I'm sorry for your loss to the family. And in a way, it feels like it's our loss, but it's Gord's win because it was time. And after we're done here today, there'll be refreshments over at the main building. When we lose a loved one, it allows us to reflect on our own mortality. It's a time for us to look at the purpose of our own life and what we're doing here on this planet. So it's a good time for reflection. And the scriptures tell us to love one another, to comfort one another in times of hardship and in times of sorrow. And that's partly why we're here today, to just be a support to the family of Gord, to each other. The Bible says God gives good gifts. And I thank the Lord for the gift of Gord in my life. Just him being who he was a blessing to me. Gord was a happy spirit. He was a common sense man and a person who cared about family. I met Gord in 2004. We both were part of a meditation group in Guelph. And it was shortly after that I was going to spend time with Gord and Nancy at Maple Leaf Acres at their home there. And there were many evenings we would sit around just talking for, it seemed like for hours. It was a great experience. And they moved, I want to also mention, at that time I was building my house and Gord came and helped me with the building of my home. So we had many good hours together doing that. And then when Gord and Nancy moved to Hanover, 13th Avenue, I was lucky enough to come up once a month and just spend time with them there. And as you know, that they all went to a senior's home from that place. And Gord shared with me his appreciation for Marie and Kathy and how they were there for him in his time in need at the end of his life. He talked about how he loved his family and how he wished he could help them when they were going through some kind of trial. That was the Gord I knew. We serve a good and faithful God, and I had many, many enjoyable hours sitting with Gord in the senior's home. We would talk about the things I just mentioned, and it was always just an uplifting time. We had such a mutual or kindred spirit and interests in life. So there's a message I wanted to give today. It's very short, but this feels it's important. And that is, Psalm 55 says, "Cast your burdens on the Lord." In this time of trouble, and there's a lot going on in our world, I just want to say, know that there's a promise in the Bible that says you can cast your burdens on the Lord and he shall sustain you. Sustain you, the righteous, and they shall not be moved. So, you know, we have the loss of Gord and we have the trials of our life, and just take this as an opportunity to grow closer to your Maker, because it's unnerving, some of the things that are happening in the world, and this is an opportunity to find a security and a truth and a peace in amongst all that confusion and craziness. Cast your burdens on the Lord, he shall sustain you, and you shall not be moved. So I'm going to invite Kathy to come up now and talk, and we'll go from that point.
Thank you, Bruce. And thank you so much for coming today. It means a lot to our family. My father was and is the most important influence on my life. No one has had the impact that he had over my decisions. From exercise to boyfriend selections, he often swayed me with his logic and common sense anecdotes. One of his favorites was a Buddha who regularly meditated under a tree. One day, a man walked by the tree and hurled insults at the enlightened one, but Buddha did not respond. The man kept up his tirade and, exasperated, finally asked, "Why do you not take offense?" Buddha held out an apple to the man and said, "If I give you this apple and you accept it, to whom does the apple belong?" "Why, me, of course," was the reply. "If I offer you this apple and you don't accept it, whose apple is it?" "What's your apple?" answered the man. Buddha said, "You offer me insults and anger, but I do not accept them, so the anger and the insults remain yours." It has been a blessing to live with both my mom and dad for the past 11 years, and I found myself reacquainting with both of them. Who gets this privilege at such a late stage in life? But most of the journey during those years was learning more about my dad and consequently more about myself. Growing up, Dad philosophized about everything and challenged us to use our own faculties when it came to decision making. From commercials to textbooks, he advocated questioning it all. If I thought myself quite clever, I'd bring him statistics and studies, to which he'd ask, who wrote the studies and why? And what are the motives, and who owns the parent company, and where did the money eventually end up, and what was done with that money? As I grew older and less frustrated with his challenges, I found myself asking the same questions both in my professional and personal lives. Doing so enabled me to avoid mindless consensus and think for myself. So many lessons learned and so many more to go. So, Dad, I'm truly happy to see you go on to new and exciting things, but I miss you so badly. Our talks over coffee, your laugh when you discovered something of value, and of course your cooking. May the love from your family and friends wrap your soul in comfort, love, and peace. Thank you for spending your life in pursuit of truth, Dad. It's rubbed off on us. You'll always be my hero.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to remember that story about the apple. It's a good one. David?
This is a celebration of our dad. There's so many ways. Dad was an extremely social guy. He loved meeting new people. I love spending time with familiars. He was always laughing, always loved to laugh. The interesting thing about Dad was every person that he came in contact with, every person that knew him, and everyone in the room, there was something specific that Dad could relate to about that person, and vice versa. So there was a connection that he had with each person. He would find it, lock in on it, and work with it. Dad was a guy who loved music. It was the first time that I heard jazz and blues was in our home. Jimmy Smith, Quincy Jones, Art Blakey, Coltrane, and dozens more. But Dad didn't stop there. He was always open to newer music. I was with him in Sands when he bought Santana's first album. He bought Creedence Clearwater, Supertramp. He loved sound. We both shared a love for bass and drums, and he got a kick out of home theater. He introduced me to comic books, King Kong, the Bowery Boys, the Thin Man movies, so much more, and the controversial Marmite. He flipped when he saw early Bruce Lee footage and took Kung Fu himself. He loved to laugh, Sanford and Son, Benny Hill, Flip Wilson, and so much more that my dad got a big kick out of, and my stupid antics as well. He was a philosophical guy, wise, didn't like problems that much, didn't like to deal with problems unless you had a solution for it. And then he liked it. He was warm, funny, smart as hell. All this and more was our dad. He concocted rhymes and riddles for us kids to find Easter stuff when we were small. He was a blast. He was always thinking of new stuff. One famous rhyme from Dad, and you'll all remember it if you know him. Does your granny come from Baghdad, or does she come from Newfie? Maybe that's why the overall is so goofy. He was a kaleidoscope, a big bowl of every spice in the world thrown in. He is already missed, and will always be. But parts of him remain and thrive like a bed of flowers in each and every one of us. So we all will remember him fondly. Farewell, Pop. We'll see you and Mom sooner than probably expected. And that's what they say in the business.
Thank you, David. That was a great, great description of your dad. For sure it was. Ruth's going to come up now.
My talk is a lot shorter than my siblings because, frankly, I just can't articulate all he meant to me. So I'd like to share a few memories I have of our father, Gordon, that were extremely important to me. And again, thank you everybody for being here. My dad was a very strong man, kind-hearted, very spiritual, humorous, sweet, and loving. When we were quite young, he packed us into a car at 3 a.m., drove his entire family to Detroit so we could attend SRF seminars where we learned how to meditate. I am most grateful for this. Dad introduced us to camping trips, took us on airplane trips to Mexico and the Bahamas, and as a family, we had many, many great adventures. At Christmas time, I remember we put on our winter clothing and went for long family walks to look at all the beautiful Christmas lights, and I remember thinking that everything looked just absolutely magical. He took Marie and I to the gym and taught us how to lift weights and to work out. It was fabulous. We loved it, and I know we both carried on weightlifting for a big number of years after. Our dad made Easter amazing by leaving us handwritten rhyming clues in a trail around the house we followed to find our Easter trees. What great fun we had, and I carried this tradition on with my girls. As an adult, there were many times in my life that I felt despairingly alone. Dad would call me and say that he would always love me. He let me know he was right by my side and always will be. And I can tell you this, that meant the world to me. Dad was exceedingly proud and spoke so highly of all of his children and all of their accomplishments on more than one occasion. As a grandfather, he was very, very proud of his grandchildren. Dad spent a lot of time with my daughters, Crystal and Marianne, and I feel we were incredibly blessed by his presence in our lives. Both Dad and Mom did a lot of babysitting for me and took them on wonderful and countless adventures. And one of the things I loved about Dad was he was always in the know of how each and every one of his grandchildren was doing. And he would always inform me. My father was a great teacher to us all, and to me he was a beautiful spirit. I only know too well how deeply he will be missed by us all, and I wish to thank my lovely sisters, Kathy and Marie, for watching over Dad in his final days with great love and compassion. Dad, we love you, and your lessons, your love, our memories, and your words will always remain in our hearts forever.
Thank you, Ruth. That was so well said. And we're going to have Marie come up now.
I've chose today to talk about my father's faith. He was a very, very spiritual man, a deeply spiritual man. But it wasn't always that way. There was a time in his life, his early life, when it was lacking in many areas. He set out to find some answers. It started with just one book, The Secret Path by Paul Brenton. Paul was one of those pioneers who introduced yoga and meditation to the West. And after reading it, our father felt a thirst for more. And it wasn't until he read Autobiography of a Yoga by Paramahansa Yogananda that his life would be changed forever. He often reflected how his prayers were answered and we became a much happier family. Often on Sundays, the whole family would wake up for church at 4 a.m., we got to stay in our pajamas, and drive to the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons in Detroit. I was so little that I could lie across the back window of our black Volkswagen with my pillow stretched out. And every time the car stopped, I'd roll into the hands of Kathy, David, and Ruth. Gosh, I love that. We had great times. In 1965, when I was 4, all of us kids were christened by Yogacharya Black in Detroit. Still to this day, our father possessed the roses and the certificates of our christening. He gave mine to me when I was 9 years old, and he felt that I was old enough to take care of them, so he said. And at present, they sit in my bedside table beside me. If they were that important to him, then they were that important to me. Our father told me one time that he actually transferred his job to the midnight shift so he could meditate in the boiler rooms without being discovered. Our dad wrote 3 books: The Life of Yogacharya Black, Paramahansa Yogananda, and his own autobiography called It's Been a Long Story. In his book, he wrote, "The person who changed my life more than any other has been Paramahansa Yogananda. His teachings and his life have been, to me, like a beacon in a storm. He has had a profound transforming influence on me, especially in later years, for which I will be eternally grateful." He spent 3/4 of his life practicing his faith in the SRF, and my mother found her faith in the teachings of the Church of the Latter-day Saints. A strange combination, you might think, for a married couple. And although their paths were different, they both found joy in God. They respected each other's choices, and it was those choices that made them the best versions of themselves. Things I learned from my dad: that difficult passages are eased more by cheerful spirits than by despair, that you should learn to become the expert boatman on all the seas, and then you can row your boat through the tumultuous waters to the safe shores of God, and that you are not defined by what happens to you, but with how you deal with what happens to you. The loss of my father is far outweighed by his peace. I am so pleased he's with our mom, and I wouldn't keep him here one more minute. I'm proud to be his daughter, and so proud that I had parents as wonderful and as loving as they were. I'll miss you forever, Mom and Dad. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Marie. That was really, really well said. Crystal's going to come up now.
Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see everyone here today and that we could come to honor Grandpa Gordon's memory. In his words, this was the best life that he ever lived. Grandpa was a wonderful storyteller. He was very theatrical. We all knew his booming voice and we loved his laugh. Today we paid tribute to that. The stories of Grandpa's unconditional love began before I was born, and I recall my mother speaking of how he knew I would need lots of love and that he was sure that the whole family would be there to help because that's what family does. I was raised on Grandma and Grandpa's farm with my mother in a cottage. One day, Mom was having a hard time getting me to stop crying, and so she called Grandpa from across the yard. Well, he flew across the grass, scooped me up under his arm like a football, and started telling me how blessed I was to have this life, and about all of the poor babies in the mud huts with only flies for friends. I stopped immediately. All I heard was his voice. What a teacher I had in him from the very beginning. Grandpa had a wonderful sense of humor. He would do anything he could to make people laugh and feel protected, and I did the same for him as often as I could. I remember discovering his bald spot. So, like any good granddaughter, I marched into my room, my desk, got out those craft scissors, and I created a toupee for him. I pasted it to fabric, and he was so proud of it. He pretended to wear it to the gym for me, and said all the guys were very jealous. He would do anything rather to ensure that my sister and I would never go without. Grandma and Grandpa were a second set of parents to Mary and I. We stayed at the trailer every other weekend. Fridays he would build his fires outside. We would watch the stars, roast marshmallows, and tell spooky stories. Boy, did Mary and I treasure those nights. During the day, we would hunt for raspberry bushes that he'd already discovered but pretended we did. We'd look for fairy houses. He and Grandma both loved the outdoors. They loved their walks. It was always an adventure and discovery with them. He would just know. He would take your hand if you needed that chat, give you a hug, some reassurance, encouragement. Mary and I considered him to be a great father figure, and he was the best example of a man I knew. I'll be honest, he drove me to be better. Taught me that I should show independence through beauty of faith, brains, and strength. Being a woman didn't mean that I was going to be at all hindered. I could be anything I wanted to be. I will never forget your unconditional love, how you never judged me or accused me, even when I was wrong. You overlooked my flaws and encouraged me to be better. From adventures on a tractor at the farm, camping, hiking trips with him and Grandma, exploring nature, he taught me how to swim, ride a bike, slow down, watch the butterflies, fly a plane. Me and Ryan both had our first flying lessons at the Brampton Flying Club, thanks to him. Did I mention he taught me to drive? I was so nervous, and he took me to Toronto and said, if you can drive in Toronto, you can drive anywhere. He taught me to explore with caution, but to try to enjoy the simple things and see the beauty in the world. That magic is as real as you want it to be. Thank you for your encouragement, telling me not to be scared. Get on the horse and ride it. Dance to your own beat. Sing the songs of your heart. From advantage, and whenever I eat a raspberry, warmed by the sun, I will think of you. I will remember to enjoy the simple things, that the Creator provides everything we need at the end of the day. We must have faith, patience, and love with one another. As long as we have family, good food, and laughs, that's all we need. That's the last thing he said to me. Crystal, I think we are here for the people, for the experience, and for the love. Your impact will never be forgotten, Grandpa. We love you.
I just want to say, wow, they were really wonderful. Well, speeches, I guess is the right word, but just what really wonderful talks from everybody. Thank you so much. We're going to have a slideshow now. That was a life very well lived. There's refreshments over in the main building. If you don't know where that is, you can follow somebody. Okay, sit over there. Is there anything else anybody needs to say? Okay, I think we're done here. Thank you.
Thank you.